Welcome to the third episode of our Dives, Works, and Fixed Fights in MMA series. Today we dive into the lower bowels of mixed martial arts to dissect more of the fake fights inside real fighting. But first, let's clear up the terminology for these spineless matches. What's the difference between a worked fight, a dive, and a fix? A worked fight is when both fighters agree beforehand on the outcome of the match. It's essentially a predetermined spectacle, like pro wrestling, where the drama is scripted and the end result is predetermined. A dive consists of a one-sided fix. Only one fighter is in on the plan. They lose intentionally, without the knowledge or consent of their opponent, often to cash in on a bet or under pressure from promoters, for example. This can potentially make the fight more credible, giving the winner a legitimate victory from his perspective. A fix involves external manipulation, where judges, referees, or others are paid off or coerced to ensure a specific outcome. This kind of corruption directly undermines the integrity of the entire sport. In this category, we can probably include most of Sherdog's Robbery of the Year awards. However, the chances of having any of those proven to be a fix is quite slim, because getting involved into a dive, a work, or a fix, that's fucking illegal. Check out the previous episodes to catch up on the worst that MMA has to offer, and let's pick it up from a classic event from 1997. We start off with a classic from the infamous Pride one, where the borders of no-holds-barred fighting and pro wrestling were flimsy at best. American kickboxer John Dixon versus Japan's own Kazunari Murakami was the first fight on the card for the first Pride event and would unceremoniously use those honors to present to the world a worked fight.
The first ever Pride fight,
right?
Kazunari Murakami versus yourself, John Dixon.
Well, and tell you, that was a work.
Attired in his dirty workout clothes going into his 9th professional fight, Dixon would concede a picturesque judo throw to Murakami and offered little resistance to the grappling exchanges, losing by armbar after 90 seconds. According to Dixon, the Japanese promotion was looking to include some local winners amongst the fights, as Rizzo and Rickson Gracie were already huge favorites against their Japanese opponents, Akira Shoji and our old friend, Nobuhiko Takada.
Here in Japan, it's all about the show, would you be willing to do what we call here hard work? Like, what was the work, He said, we can't have all our Japanese stars win, so we got, I think mine was a work, Nathan Jones of Troy, his was a work, and the rest were real, because they knew Henzo would beat Shoji. They knew Rickson would beat Takada, so they couldn't have all the Japanese stars. It was big for the public,
John Dixon versus Kazunari Murakami is a picture-perfect example of a worked fight, and with a confession on top to leave no doubt to the bout's legitimacy. The next example, though, is not quite as simple.
From the land of the rising sun, Ultimate Fighting Championship presents Ultimate Japan.
The UFC's first trip to Japan came only 2 months after Pride's inaugural event, in December 1997, at Ultimate Japan. Future Japanese superstar Kazushi Sakuraba was making his octagon debut in just his 2nd professional fight against future American top team head coach and Carlson Gracie's protege, Marcus Conan Silveira. Conan outweighed Sakuraba by almost 40 pounds, but conceded an early takedown and was threatened by Saku's leg lock attempts. The Brazilian managed to reverse the position and get back to his feet, where he wasted no time throwing haymakers. Sakuraba ate some punches and jumped into a single leg, which Big John McCarthy incorrectly assessed as a knockout and prematurely stopped the fight. This is where things start to get murky. Language barriers and confusion about the rules made Sakuraba furious as he refused to leave the cage. His team protested, and so did the Japanese crowd. Saku tried to steal Bruce Buffer's mic to vent his frustrations, but to no avail. Conan was declared the winner and advanced into the finals. On the other semifinal, Tank Abbott and Yoji Anjo fought a grueling 15-minute round, with Abbott coming out with a decision victory and a broken hand, rendering him unable to compete on the finals. The promotion then decided to book Silveira versus Sakuraba again, this time as the tournament final. Conan recalls an interesting encounter with some unfriendly-looking, suit-wearing Japanese men outside his dressing room minutes before the rematch, who made an offer he couldn't refuse.
I know that he had a replacement, a guy that was just there in case something happened.
Yeah.
So I was supposed to fight the replacement for the finals. So he said, no, you got to come back and you got to fight Sakuraba again. I say, when? not going to be tonight, but in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. He say 20 minutes. But I'm not going. Why am I going to go back to fight the guy I just won?
Yeah.
No, because there was
because
no
you have
contest.
to.
No. That comes right now. That comes right now. So he's like, was a back and forth. I'm like, I'm not gonna come back. And my brother comes to me and say, hey, stop for a second, take a look outside. So I open the door and I look outside and I say, man, why all this Japanese in the black?
Yeah, look at the
suit?
tattoos on them.
No, the black suit waiting by my door. I'm like, what's wrong with that? They're not referees, they're not part of the commission.
Eles vieram me comunicar que eu tinha que voltar a lutar, eu falei que não. Eu falei, não vou, lógico, não existe isso, eu luto com ele outro dia, mas não hoje. Aí o meu irmão chegou para mim e falou que dá uma olhada lá fora. Quando eu botei a cabeça do lado de fora, eu falei, meu amigo, o negócio é sério mesmo, eu vou ter que voltar. Tinha uns 10 de terno preto, assim, tipo me cercando, não me cercando, mas cercando o vestiário ali, a porta. Aí eu falei, eu entendi a mensagem. Aí, meu amigo, eu não estava mais preocupado se eu ia ganhar, se eu ia perder, o que ia acontecer. Eu queria era acabar a luta, ir pro hotel, pegar minha mala e ir embora, né? Na minha cabeça havia aquele show de terror. Eu falei, pô...
After that unorthodox backstage interaction, Conan came back to fight against Sakuraba for the tournament finals. But as he states, his mind wasn't there. Conan would start the fight with a takedown, but Sakuraba would hold on to his trademark key lock to reverse his bottom position and quickly submit the Brazilian with an armbar, to the delight of the Japanese crowd. Conan doesn't go into detail about what exactly happened backstage, but after the fight, he would run back to his hotel, pack his bags, and head straight to the airport to anxiously await his flight for 15 hours.
But when I saw the people outside in the country that I don't speak the language, I don't know where I am, I have no idea what's going to happen. I'm going to say, from here to the airport, anything can happen. I'm like, my mind was not there anymore.
Sure.
I'm like, I just want to fight whatever happens. Let me go back to the hotel, let me get my stuff, pack, and leave. That's exactly what happened. Yeah. I mean, I fought, and he got me. I'm like, okay, can I go? I want to go. I was so quick from the cage to the hotel and pack my stuff, and I went to the airport like 15 hours before my flight. So I'm going to stay here.
Conan would never fight professionally in Japan again. Sakuraba came out as the Ultimate Japan Heavyweight Tournament winner and would go on to have a legendary career, but would never fight inside the UFC octagon again. Although it's unclear if Sakuraba knew about the coercive interaction backstage, he would greatly benefit from the alleged fix done by those alleged Yakuza members. Unfortunately, this won't be Sakuraba's only entry on this list.
What they did in Japan, they only told one guy. So the guys that were going to win, your Crow Cops, your Vandalays, your Fedors, they were never in the room when the promoter, also known as the Yakuza, also known as the Japanese Mafia, walks in the room and tells the opponent when to go down. So when the guy goes down, the winner, Vandalay, Crow Cop, Fedor, just by example, really thinks they won. So they don't ever know the fix is in. And pretty soon they start to think they really can go beat 20-some guys in a row.
Kazushi Sakuraba's first MMA fight on his record is a loss against the legendary bodybuilder, hardcore Christian, and Royce Gracie's nemesis, Kimo Leopoldo, at Shoot Boxing, S Cup 1996. This fight has been rumored for years to have been a fix, more precisely, a dive by the Japanese icon. Kimo outweighed Saku by almost 60 pounds and imposed his advantage over the Japanese quickly, defending the takedown by sheer force, getting the back and landing headbutts to the back of Sakuraba's head. Yeah, early MMA was wild. Sakuraba managed to escape and get back to his feet, only to get dragged down again by the much larger Kimo, who trapped him in a far-from-textbook arm triangle from half guard. Sakuraba did not tap nor went out, but the referee stopped the fight, awarding Kimo his second career submission win at Yoyogi National Stadium in Tokyo. It's hard to imagine a man whose later nickname would be Gracie Hunter to get submitted in the first round by a bodybuilder. And after this arm triangle in 1996, Sakuraba would lose by submission again only 14 years later against Mayhem Miller in December 2010. So why put Sakuraba to lose in front of a Japanese crowd? Well, at the time, Kimo was a household name in MMA with his striking physique and his instant classic fight against Gracie in his resume. while Sakuraba was an average pro wrestler, a scrub whose main job was to put other guys over, making them look good while beating him. Saku was a staple at the Japanese pro wrestling promotion Union of Wrestling Forces International, and was often used as a stepping stone for more recognizable faces in Japan, such as Tokimitsu Ishizawa, Koji Kanemoto, and Shinjiro Otani. Kimo was also an established fighting star over in Japan, having earned a TKO win over fellow MMA pioneer Pat Smith months earlier at a K1 event in this awesome fenced ring. So, at first glance, it may seem counterintuitive to see Sakuraba losing in Japan, but when put into perspective, Kimo's win makes a lot more sense. When asked about the fight just 3 years later by Sherdog in 1999, Sakuraba conveniently said he didn't remember, while Kimo stated that the fight was indeed a real fight.
Longer, like when I fought Sakuraba, I wasn't allowed to punch his face on the ground, which in a term of me mounting him would mean I couldn't punch him in the face if I mounted him, which would make the fight last longer. But I always would say headbutts allowed, because if you grab my hands, I still get him with my head.
One last bit of information that might sway your final verdict. Sakuraba's Hall of Fame acceptance speech sheds some light on his view of the fight. When referring to his UFC debut, the fight against Conan Silveira, officially his second pro fight of his career, Sakuraba states that it was indeed his debut in MMA.
I was very surprised to find myself in the octagon facing a giant of a man, some 50 pounds heavier.
もちろんパワーで押しまくられたものの、なんとかアームバーで勝利を飾ることができました。
Of course, he was all about power, and he put the pressure on, but I was able to achieve a win with an armbar. For all intents and purposes, that fight is my MMA debut.
So, by definition, should that mean the fight against Kimo Leopoldo, his first official fight on his record, was not actually professional MMA? Make of it what you will and share your thoughts in the comments if you think this was a legitimate fight or if Sakuraba took a dive.
This is #1 bullshit.
Now back to our old friend of the channel, Mr. Nobuhiko Takada, earning his third win in MMA and his third worked fight inside the Pride ring against fellow pro wrestler Alexander Otsuka at Pride 7. The choreographic nature of the whole fight leaves little doubt to its legitimacy, like the lack of strikes or damage exchange between the two entertainers. This fight features some elusive pro wrestling moves as Otsuka landed a cinematic fisherman suplex to the awe of the crowd. Taunting each other and giving a show for those 10,000 watching it live, the pair was doing their best to sell it as a real fight, but to little success. The second round becomes even more theatrical, with the cream of the crops coming at the finish. Takada supposedly lands an upkick, which stung and knocked down an overreactive Otsuka. An easy target laying on the mat, Otsuka receives some real and some fake punches before Takada sinks in a far-from-perfect rear naked chove on his already knocked-out opponent. This would be Takada's last MMA win, which is featured in his Pride fight record, but is not in his Sherdog or Topology records. This fight was also removed from Pride 7's broadcast on Fight Pass. For all intents and purposes, this fight is so blatantly false that it was removed from the official history books. Both would retire on a losing record, all while padding the records for MMA greats like Rampage Jackson, Ken Shamrock, Mark Kerr, Royce Gracie, Anderson Silva, and Vanderlei Silva, but this is a rabbit hole for another video. Speaking of rabbit holes, let's take a quick look at Dan Severn's career. Severn is widely referred to as an MMA pioneer and a legend, even being inducted into the UFC's Hall of Fame in 2005. His handlebar mustache and wrestling-heavy style were a trademark of the early UFCs, but his career of 127 fights spanning 18 years leaves much room for interpretation. Some of his confirmed fixed fights include his fight against Pedro Rizzo at UFC 27.
This might be something that, you could get back to the title in one fight. You should take the fight. So he took the fight. But what I don't know at the time is, it wasn't going to be a fight. Well, I know the matchmaker was John Peretti at the time. We had a little disagreement at that moment because I don't know who Dan is at this point. I don't know that he's capable of taking $20,000 for 30 seconds work and smiling and thinking he got over. Never mind his legacy or whatever. But the biggest tell in this to me And I pointed this out to people, and as soon as I do, and they watch the video, they go, "Oh shit, that's true." Dan gets kicked in one leg and limps on the other.
Or his draw against Pat Miletich at Extreme Challenge, for example.
I didn't know how they were going to pull it off, but they were going to pull it off. So then they approached Pat. And when they approached Pat, they told him that Monty said it was okay. We're going to have a work. It'll end up in a draw. You'll look good. I'll look good. Nobody's going to get hurt. And it's all on the up and up. You know, I don't know what happened with Pat after that, if he went and talked to Monty about it or whatever. But it ended up being a draw and nobody got hurt.
Or even his fights against perennial MMA shadow figure, Travis Fulton.
And I was there when they had the conversation with Travis saying this was going to be a work. So I saw it all from jump.
So you're only like 95% sure.
I'm only that. Yeah.
Okay.
99.
Let's enjoy just one of his countless works, now against MMA debutant, Mr. Danger himself, pro wrestler Mitsuhiro Matsunaga. Severn was coming into his 15th fight, already a UFC champion making his superstar debut in Japan, against the longtime Japanese pro wrestler. Dan wasted no time nor effort taking down, ragdolling and slamming Matsunaga to the ground repeatedly, until sinking in a strangely looking reverse armbar, reminiscent of his pro wrestling days. The oddities of Severn's career are not few and far between, with more examples of these bizarre bouts hidden in plain sight. Severn's career deep dive has been dissected in a great video by Kombat Capital that I'll link in the description. Sometimes a bit of revisionist history is not bad.
And that's the thing about it, is the saddest part of Dan Severn's career to me is that he could have been the best. He could have trained and beaten everyone, but it just wasn't important to him.
Fix, straight from MMA's primordial soup. Single night tournaments were a delight to the fan and for the fighters. Competing thrice in one night to be crowned champion takes an enormous effort, and any shortcuts to reach it are unethically welcome. In the first episode of this series, we took a look at Anthony Macias versus Oleg Taktarov, both competing in the UFC 6 open-weight tournament while being managed by the same person, Buddy Albin. This clear conflict of interest ended in a dive by Macias and the fastest submission in UFC history, a record that stands untouched to this day. Gary Goodridge versus Cal Worsham is a very similar example. Goodridge was going into his 4th career single-night tournament at International Vale Tudo Championship in Brazil, after failing to win 3 times in the UFC. Although the fight passes the eye test without any red flags, Gary tells a different story about the tournament's semifinal.
Cal Worsham's on the card. You beat Cal Worsham in 43 seconds with a key lock.
Yeah.
Cal Worsham was legit.
The thing what happened with Cal Worsham there, and I'll tell you the truth. We knew we were going to fight. He said, well, how much are you going to pay me for me to lose? I said, what do you want? So he said, well, so then we came up with a number. I really don't remember what the number is. He said, I'll tap to you. I'll tap for you. Okay, tap for me. That's the truth.
Wow.
So yeah, fight Cal Worsham, but we didn't even rough and tumble. It was like 30 seconds. I know that in order to get me to the finals, that's what Cal did. And I won that tournament. I won that. I got the belt for it.
Goodridge would go on to the finals to face Pedro Otavio, winning the fight by TKO after 16 grueling minutes. The IVC tournament win would be Goodridge's only championship victory of his career. In recent years, Gary has unfortunately been struggling with CTE symptoms stemming from his fighting days.
That is from my mental stability.
Mental stability.
Mental stability.
And what does this do?
It makes me not want to beat you.
Okay, so I'm glad that you did take that one today, right? Okay, good.
Last but not least, we have future UFC welterweight champion Matt Serra at ADCC 2001. Serra's run in Abu Dhabi remains one of the most memorable performances by an American grappler at the time. Competing in the under 77 kilogram division, Serra showcased his elite Brazilian jiu-jitsu skills, making it all the way to the finals in a stacked bracket.
When I went there, so first Gomi, guard, omoplata, reversal, took the back, finished. John Jock, I know it's not going to be that, but I didn't know. I had such faith in my guard. I did. So again, man, the strategy worked great. And after that 5-minute mark, I did reverse John Jock with my fucking waiter sweep. I got him, got on top. They didn't even give me points for that shit, dude. I ended up winning because then he actually pulled guard when we got back to our feet to try to sweep me. Got a negative point and won. That to me was the equivalent of kind of what I did in MMA with GSP, not to be that he was at one point the best ever, like best in Brazil when Dixon left. I had a great rest of the day too. Leo Santos, who's still competing in the UFC.
Yeah, he's in the UFC.
He's still in the UFC. He's doing great. Back then, he was a kid that was like either undefeated or undefeated as black belt or whatever it is, and I ended up strangling him next. I had a great match with Leo next.
After beating Takanori Gomi, Jean-Jacques Machado, and Leonardo Santos, Serra moved on to the finals to meet with current Brazilian BJJ champion, Marcio Feitosa. Renzo Gracie, the man who gave Serra his black belt, made an embarrassing request to his protege.
That's why I didn't give a fuck when it came down to the last match with Marcio Feitosa, and Renzo asked me to, take the fucking dive. I said, hey man, listen. He said it. Listen, this is exactly what he said. He goes, Matt, they're looking at Americans as like that they're all for themselves, and this will prove that you're one of us. And that I go, Renzo, look, you gave me this life. If you asking me to lose to Marcio because I've had a seniority, because back then, when I got to the Pan Ams, the one I told you about, fuck man, I strangled a couple Baja guys on the way there, but now I'm in the finals threatening a fucking gold match with the same team. Papa, hey, are we or are we not? I don't feel like we're the same fucking team. So I'm ready to fuck up whoever's in the finals. That's my attitude.
Because of Jiu-Jitsu seniority's unspoken rules, students tend to ease the path to their masters on the mat. Matt Serra was caught in a political crossfire between Brazilian BJJ top dogs looking to leave their mark.
Let's kind of frame this. So he's the head instructor at Gracie Baja and pretty much Carlos Gracie Jr.'s right-hand man. So now Renzo comes in, obviously Gracie Baja, and he's got his first American black belt. So the politics are coming into play heavy in this match.
100%. I don't regret anything. Renzo did tell me, look, he didn't have to tell me, but Marcio did leave his neck out for Renzo, the Abu Dhabi before that. I want to add that. So I'm not shitting here on Marcio. This is the way they're playing it back then. Renzo was his senior. He left his neck out for Renzo. Okay. They're not letting nobody bow out. All right. So I told Renzo, look, I see what's going on. I get it. The seniority thing, I'll take a bullet for you. You want me to give up this medal for you? You got it. But I'm not letting them tap me. I'm not letting them.
Matt Serra would not tap, but Renzo's pressure would prove to be enough for him to throw the fight. Serra finished his historical ADCC run with a silver medal, losing -2-0 to Marcio Feitosa. Guys, thank you for watching and for the continued support on the channel. Shout out to the MMA detective Mike Davis for the help with the research. Go check out his work at MMA History Podcast. Like the video if you liked the video, and subscribe to the channel for more of the weird lore of MMA. I just got monetized by YouTube, so that's pretty cool, and I just want to thank everyone that enjoys the content. It really means a lot. See you in the next video. Stay safe.
Tomorrow here at Tito's Cantina, we have UFC Fight Night. Israel Adesanya against Menavov. A phenomenal fight, plus Michael Page versus Magomedov, who's undefeated